Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I get to introduce myself as co-host for the very first time. I am Robbie Bettelon, covering Michigan State for The Only Colors, and of course, the Detroit Pistons for Detroit Bad Boys.
Robbie, I'm glad you called it out because that was the very first thing I was going to ask you. How did that feel? Did it feel good? Bad, nervous? Sometimes, you get a little nervous with that intro one. I know you wrote that up, so you feeling good about it.
Yeah. I rehearsed that in the mirror, I want to say maybe 20 times last night as I was preparing for this podcast. I will say we had a comment on Detroit Bad Boys. I'm going to start with one early today, which is, what am I supposed to do with my time during the off season? That was from the Beastman 17. I just wanted to share what I did over the weekend. So granted, I'm in Nashville, so I'm much closer to Louisville. Took a road trip to Louisville with some friends this weekend. We played some pickleball on the waterfront. We ate some good food. Nice. We did some bowling. I won on the final frame. It was a walk-off strike on my third roll in the final frame. Shout out to Ben because I beat you by 3 points. And then also Mr. Beast, or the Beast Man. I saw the Odyssey.
That'd be a heck of a commenter right there for DBV. I love it.
So we had been looking for tickets for the Odyssey. Nashville has one of those 70 millimeter IMAX theaters. Cool. A viewing experience that you got to see it in. And we were looking for tickets, and it's like only the front row is available. And Monday night we looked at about 8:30, and I found in a 11 a.m. That was like somewhat in the middle, and took the day off on Tuesday and had to go see it. So if you, Beastman, if you're looking for something to do right now, I would say, hey, take a little road trip to Louisville or go ahead and see the Odyssey. You could at least kill 3 hours of the off season.
I got two questions.
Okay. 2
questions right off the jump for you on this one, Robbie. First of all, was the Odyssey worth the day off? I think like that. I mean, so MMC 313, was it good? That's the question. Right, you took the day off to go see a matinee show. Did it justify?
Yeah. First off, anytime you take a day off of work is a good day. So, yes, it was a great day. But that was my first like true IMAX experience. It was so loud, your seat would vibrate when like the bass was hitting, and funny enough, there were news people there, and so I got interviewed by the news afterwards. I showed up on the 6:30 news on Tuesday night. On the street, nice. Yes. I should have introduced myself as Bobby Buckets. DBB podcast new co-host, as anyone in the Nashville news would know. Fantastic movie. Truly one of the best movie experiences like in a movie theater that I have ever had. And I cannot wait to see it again. Like, I could not recommend seeing that movie enough.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. We haven't bought tickets for it yet, but there is an IMAX theater now near us in the Chicago area. So I'm pumped. I'm watching for it. But and really, honestly, like I'm glad you say it's really good. That makes me more excited. But I have, even before this conversation, I had such great confidence that it would be better than the last movie I saw at an IMAX experience, which was Russell Crowe's Noah. That was not good. That was, if you guys remember that movie, I'm sorry for you. If you haven't seen it, then you're better off, because that was a bad movie. It's about the biblical story of Noah's Ark, but like action movie, Russell Crowe, it was terrible. It was so bad. So I'm happy to replace that memory whenever we can make that happen.
The whole story of the Odyssey is very good. They tell it very well, even with all the different characters. Like, you don't get lost in the story. And then there are just so many different scenes that are so exciting that like get you at the edge of your seat. And it was the fastest 3 hours ever. That's why I told my fiance afterwards when we get out of the theater, I was like, that was the fastest 3 hours I'd ever experienced, because I was just like so immersed in the movie.
Man, there are so many movies right now that I want to see. I missed Project Hail Mary. Like, I really wanted to go see that one in theaters, but it's on Amazon Prime now. So my wife and I were going to do a little movie night, which admittedly is a lot easier to do at home with a now 4-month-old daughter than going out to the movies. But I think the Odyssey is probably going to be worth that one, so I want to go. But I mean, so Mimsy 3-3, Spider-Man Brand New Day. I'm actually looking forward to that one too. I've kind of been like checked out of the Marvel superhero movie stuff. I've seen maybe one or two since Endgame, and like, I don't know, it just hasn't really been for me. But I'm looking forward to that one.
I'm there with you. I just watched Shang-Chi the other day because I think that's the first one after Endgame, and just like you, since Endgame came out, I kind of been slacking on my Marvel game. So I want to start picking it up. I can't wait to see the new Spider-Man movie, and then of course Avengers Doomsday in December. I'm super pumped about.
Oh yeah, they just dropped. I think there was a trailer for that, right?
Yeah,
I saw that.
Got me excited. That trailer did.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll watch the trailer. We'll see. Yeah. The last question though that I want, and this is like totally off the topic, but you a good bowler then? Is that what that means?
I bowled a 123.
Does this mean you're a good bowler?
123 I don't think is very good.
Okay.
And I want to spin it. I can't spin it. Just throw it as hard as possible right down the middle.
I gotcha. Yeah, that's the Ron Swanson approach, right?
Yeah,
you just none of that funny stuff, straight down the middle, no bend, no curve. Yeah, just let it go. I am also not a good bowler, so
it's fun. Every time I bowl or every time I golf, I'm like, man, I need to do this more because I'm not good at either of them. But they're both fun to play. So just gotta play
every time I bowl or every time I golf. If it's bowling, I'll have like one good game, and that's my inspiration to stop, and I never want to bowl again. If it's golf, I'll hit like one good shot, and I'm done for the day. I'm good. I don't need to do this anymore. It's just going to be frustrating. Yep, it's just going to be frustrating. My pitch to you guys for off-season stuff, IndyCar racing. That is my summer sport of choice. And you know what? With the Tigers, for a while they weren't doing good.
Doing better.
Rumor has it they're doing a little better, right? I'm a very fair weather baseball fan, so I've been kind of checked out with that. But because they were doing poorly, throw even more of my time in IndyCar racing. Fantastic time. It's a good show. Racing's competitive. It's open wheel, so it's kind of like discount F1. You don't have to wake up at 3 a.m. to go watch it live.
Right.
It's happening on prime time. It's still that open wheel racing. They do ovals every now and then. Those are a blast. I love the IndyCar racing. I'm a big fan. They were just in Nashville.
They do. So this was, I want to say a year or two ago, but I saw where they were like shutting down streets in the city and they were racing around the city and whatnot. I thought it was cool. That they
very bad.
Up. Was it?
It was very bad. Those were very. They did that street circuit.
Yeah.
Yeah. They did that street circuit for, I want to say 2 or 3 years. It was lots of potholes, as you said, so not very well maintained, and it was super tight. Like the streets of Detroit race that they do is really tight. There's not a lot of passing, and it's a really short track. Nashville, my memory of it was a little longer, but it was still super tight. So there's not a lot of passing. It's just kind of a processional until you get a big wreck. Where now they're at Nashville Speedway, and that's a great show. That is fun. It's kind of one of those tri-ovals. No Mimsy 3-1-3. It's not just a lot of left turns. It's not
left.
It's very difficult.
Go
grab like one of the Forza Motorsport things. Try to do it. It's hard. That's all I'm saying.
I love that we started this podcast with movies, golf, bowling, and IndyCar racing, and
that's how you know we're almost to August.
Yeah, right. We got to just stretch this out. I mean, I guess we could start talking about Summer League.
If you'd like.
Yeah, there's been one game since our last podcast where they finished up the game with the Miami Heat. But I guess we can wrap up with just our final thoughts on Summer League if you've got anything else to add. So I'll say Okori ended up finishing with 18 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. I do want to mention that he shot 36% from the field and 17% from 3. I have zero concerns over a 5-game stretch of his first 5 games since he played any 5v5 since Stanford. There are 2 that I guess I will mention of like, this is more so the stats that I want to focus on. One is his 88% from the free throw line. Free throw percentage is usually a good correlation of how you're going to shoot, and being an 88% free throw shooter tells me that he is most likely not going to shoot 17% from from deep in the league. So as much as we would have liked to see him be more efficient, I don't have any concerns over that. But one thing that was, something in his Stanford game was that he rarely turned the ball over, and that is something that this Pistons team did many times last season. And so he did have 2.6 turnovers per game, and you could ask, is that a lot? Is that a little? Well, if we talk about some of the top guys that were drafted, it would be less than Caleb Wilson, Darius Acuff, Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer. So some of those top guys that were drafted, even down to some of the point guards, Christian Anderson, Mikael Brown, Bennett Sturts, relative to his peers and other people who either got drafted around him or before him, his turnovers weren't very high. And I even remember some games where he's missed some lob pass. He missed like a transition pass. So even with that lower turnover, like I'm just, if you think 2.6 is a lot, I don't necessarily feel that way. So Wes, thoughts on Okori and just kind of his 5-game summer league review?
Yeah, I think you saw a lot of what you'd like to see out of a guard kind of in his archetype, right? Like, what did he do well? He operated in transition really well. As you mentioned, he didn't turn over the ball all that much. He got to the rim kind of at will, drew a lot of fouls that it's summer league, they don't always get called. I think he would have been at the free throw line more in a regular season game with some of that. So all the positives are there. I think you still have the same questions that you did with Stanford, right? Was the playmaking something that's going to really translate? I don't know. He missed a decent amount of reads. He made a couple of really nice ones too. So it's kind of a big swing on that. I was impressed with his defensive effort. When he was at Stanford, he was good at creating turnovers that translated over to summer league. He had that, that 7 steal game, which was really impressive. But I think, he picked up pretty high, like close to half court, sometimes even over into the backcourt a few times, and just had a level of intensity on that end that I was impressed with. Wasn't necessarily something I had seen out of him back when he was, playing for Stanford. But I think, kind of the bigger thing to remember with summer league, with a lot of this is the same for Chaz Lanier to an extent, but with all the rookies, really, like this is a sprint. These guys have never done anything like this before at this level, right? Like summer league, it is a couple of weeks. You're playing 5 games. You're practicing a bunch too. Like it really is a grind. And you get out of that college schedule that is far more spaced out, far more relaxed. There's not as much. Like this is their first experience of there's no school. There's no nothing else. Like you are a professional basketball player and you're doing this 24/7. So like that's why the shooting percentages just usually don't translate, in my opinion, from summer league to the NBA. Because these guys, their legs are dead. All of them, their legs are dead. And I think you see that with Okori. And so, like, he airballed a couple of threes in over the course of this. He wasn't a great shooter at Stanford, but that's unusual. That's not something you saw out of him very much at all. It's really the legs thing there. So, like, it's summer league, so you take it all with a grain of salt. Yeah, Brad B saying the speed translates. I think it's going to translate to the NBA as well. I very much agree with that. So, it's summer league. He looked good for a rookie point guard in summer league. We'll see what it kind of translates to when we get to the preseason here. And I'm going to be really interested when we get to that.
I feel like summer league is usually tough on like young point guards too. Like
it is. It really is.
It's super physical.
Also, there's usually not a lot of space, right? It's physical, and you're playing with like Isaac Jones and Ugana Onyenso.
Yes. You don't have much of a space.
That's going to be tough.
Yeah. And they're physical. They want the guys to play. And frankly, I think we talked about this last time, but you kind of like, I'm cool with him being thrown into this, like, hey, don't call fouls on him. Granted, like when we get to the league, I need him to get to the free throw line and I need you to call that foul. But like during summer league, like, yeah, like rough him up a little bit, like welcome to the league. I have no problem with any of that. And so, I'm happy with his performance. I think there are some things that we can be really excited about with the Corey, but also of course he struggled at times, but nothing to me that I would say is worrisome, I guess, from like a not, it's crazy to call him a teenager, like he's technically a teenager entering the league. So, Yeah, I don't have any concerns about his shooting percentages, but somebody who did have some pretty great shooting percentages was our second-year man, Chaz Lanier. And hey, I'm going to give ourselves a little pat on the back here because we said,
Love
hey,
it, yeah.
Chaz, we want you to shoot 10 threes per game. And you know what? He ended up with 9. He ended up averaging 9 threes per game and ended up shooting above 50% from three-point land. And I think it's funny that his field goal percentage was 47%. So it was actually lower than his three-point percentage. Thoughts on Chaz Lanier and kind of how he finished summer league? Because it started rough, but then he kind of turned into a flamethrower.
He did. Yeah, that first game was bad, and then it was all good from there. That I think, you, myself, Blake, we all talked about it on last week's show, but I kind of stand by it. There's just something that I'm not seeing out of his game. Like, he doesn't look like that second-year player that's just better than all the other guys that are out there on the floor. And the shot looks great, so that's exciting. There were still some bad misses that were kind of laced in there, but I think when you're shooting over 50%, like, you can kind of wave those off, and that's okay. That my concern is he just didn't look dominant in a way that I would have liked him to, especially as an older second-year player as well. He's 24 years old, if I'm remembering correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So, it would be nice to see if he's playing some kind of mostly G League, two-way, 10-day contract type of competition to, if he gets run off the line, at least make the easy play and make it look like it was an easy play. And he just didn't really do those things. And I think this kind of naturally flows into this question we just got here from Brandon Bettelon. Any relation there?
Yeah, that's my youngest brother.
Nice. Welcome. Yeah. All right. Well, where do we see Chaz fitting in this year? Is he going to be another two-way player? I think that's a great question, right? Because it's kind of him and Gary Harris, unless something else changes for that last roster spot.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that to echo what you are saying with, as a 24-year-old, in summer league, I would have liked to see him getting buckets in a way that wasn't purely off ball, coming off of pin down screens, running around the arc. Granted, the way that he can get his shot off so quickly and set his feet and square his shoulders, and it's very, very impressive, but it felt like that was like the only thing that he did. He didn't stand out on the defensive end, which, like, can you be a 3-and-D 2 guard at some point? If his defense isn't great now, I'm not sure it's going to get any better. And if there's a way for him to move up in the depth chart, I think he has to have some type of on-ball game. And you really didn't see that in Summer League. He really is just like a strictly off-ball catch-and-shoot guy, which, granted, in this scenario of Gary Harris versus Chaz Lanier, I think Chaz's Summer League gave me enough that I'm like, okay, there's at least something there. You can use him if, there's a world where like Duncan and Isaiah Joe are maybe resting one night and Chaz needs to play some bench minutes or something. Like, I'm cool with him kind of being in that 11 through 15 on the roster, which is where I think he lands. But ultimately, I wanted to see a jump on ball, and we just didn't get to see that this summer.
And there's a role for a specialist, right? Like a pure specialist. There are spots
for
across
sure
the league for guys that can go out and, knock down 45% from three. It's just, it's usually tougher to find regular rotation minutes for that sort of player. And often you can trade, say, if Chaz is going to be a 45% three-point shooter but not give you anything else, you could probably trade about 7 of those percentage points, get a 38% three-point shooter who maybe could do just a little bit more either defensively or with the ball in their hands. So, when you're saying on-ball stuff, I'm with you. Like, I didn't need to see him operating pick and rolls. I think that would have been asking a little much. I don't think I even need to see him in too many handoff creation situations, but just to make whatever easy reads that he would be making if he gets run off the line. And I know I said it, but make it look like it really was the easy read. Like, guy flies by you still got the rear contest, so you can't get the shot up. Take 2 dribbles and hit the corner.
Yeah, attack a closeout.
Just do that.
Drive
Make it consistent. Yeah, nice and easy. and don't make it look like it's something crazy. And to this question, Jay Maluka says, I do wonder how someone like Duncan Robinson would look in the G League. Duncan Robinson does that.
Yes.
Right? That's what he does. When he gets run off the line, he can hit a little floater. He can make a nice little spray out pass. He doesn't do anything crazy, but he just makes the smart, simple play and makes it look like, oh, yep, that was the right read in that situation. Now he gets to curl on out and go back to the 3-point line. That's all you want out of him.
Yeah, relocate.
I was hoping to see more of that. And I did not see it out of Chaz Lanier. And, good point. MC 3-1-3. Duncan was a specialist for a while, so maybe that's the trajectory. I could see that. I think that there's still something there with Chaz Lanier. That 3-point shooting more than justifies keeping him around. The question is, are you going to be willing to trust, at least right now, are you willing to trust him, Chaz Lanier, in emergency NBA minutes, or would you rather just give those to a vet on the roster and Gary Harris? I think it's fair. I don't think there's a right answer either way, to be quite honest with you, because it's not like Gary Harris has been, going gangbusters over in Milwaukee, right? He's kind of a shell of what he used to be as well. So you're kind of specialist 3-point shooter versus kind of that vet savvy. You could kind of take your pick on that. I'm not sure which way they'd go.
Yeah, we've got a little game to play later on in the podcast that we may see this Chaz Lanier versus Gary Harris conversation come up again. So stick around for some more of that. But Wes, I feel like we can't have some type of podcast without talking about Jalen Duren at this point, because it's going on and on and on.
It's like the only news that's left too, which I think is why we're all so obsessed with it.
The update is no update. I want to share a couple quotes, and then I kind of want to hear your thoughts on just where Jalen Duren is, just this whole situation is at right now. So we had a couple quotes from since we did our last podcast on last week, Thursday. So Ramona Shelburne said that negotiations are a standstill right now, and it could take deep into August. Mark Stein, he said, I've been told the progress between the Pistons and Jalen Duren have been quite modest. And then Jake Fisher, also in the Mark Stein world, said that Detroit has zero interest in any sign and trade scenarios. Before I pass it over to you, Wes, there was, I guess, kind of one thought, maybe two thoughts here, is that just because we are bored in the offseason and that we do not have any Jalen Duren updates does not mean we need to hurry up and expedite this process just to get some type of news. It is not a bad thing that negotiations are going deep into August, if that is the case. Peyton Watson, another restricted free agent, still not signed. Benedict Mathurin, another restricted free agent, still not signed. If I remember correctly from last year, Josh Giddey in the Chicago Bulls, I think that went deep into the summer as well. So
it did.
Patience is a good thing right now. And I also want to say, just because a guy like Jake Fisher is reporting that Detroit is not interested in sign and trade scenarios, I could almost guarantee it does not mean that the front office has not done their homework on what they would want back in a sign and trade scenario if it, for whatever reason, were to get to that. So I saw some things this week where, like, oh my gosh, they're not even considering it. They haven't even come up with sign and trade ideas. And I would think that I would think they had 29 different options for the 29 other teams of, hey, if we did move Jalen Duren to this team in a sign and trade, what would we want back from them? I would think a prepared front office, and I think the Langdon staff, the Langdon front office has seemed as prepared as they have. They always seem prepared, basically. They always seem on top of it. I would assume that they have done their homework and that they have considered sign and trade scenarios. But I also understand, like, hey, we're going to shut all of that down. We want Duren, obviously, on a healthy deal. But now that we're getting into late July, we may get into late August. What are kind of your thoughts on the whole Duren situation right now?
I mean, basically exactly what you said. There's been no news. Like this is all a no news. I mean, to the point of your, Jake Fisher, they haven't they're not interested in it. You have to understand that this would be a sign and trade, which means that Duren's agent needs to go to the other team, say, hey, are you interested in my client? If they say yes, okay, what are you willing to pay? If that's an interesting number to Duren's agent, bring that back right to the Pistons, say, hey, they're interested. Here's what they're willing to offer. Here's likely what their trade package would be, because of course that's going to come up. And if the Pistons don't think that's any good, then they shut it all down right there. I mean, that's exactly what happened with Sacramento. So like because this is a sign and trade, they almost by definition have to be hearing the offers. They just don't like any of them because they'd rather have their 22-year-old all-star, all-NBA third-team center who has great chemistry with Cade Cunningham and, has taken a massive leap last year on the offensive end. Like, yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure they'd like to get him at a number obviously different than what Jalen Duren would like to be earning right now. And I'm sure Jalen Duren would like to be back with his dude, Cade Cunningham, for a number higher what the Pistons are offering. That's where we are. That's where we've been since June. Early June. That's probably where we've been since late May, if I'm remembering kind of timeline correctly here. So it's going to take a minute, and I'm with you. That's okay. This is just kind of how it goes. It is unprecedented how good of a player that is going through this process. Like in terms of the stretch it out, our restricted free agency thing, like Josh Giddey's probably the closest analogy we could get, but Josh Giddey wasn't an all-star, all-NBA type player.
Right.
Jalen Duren really isn't a tier above that. So this is unique. We've not really seen it, but it is following neatly along with the path just about every other restricted free agent has gone down during this new CBA. So
yeah,
not surprising, just kind of what it is.
He definitely seems like the most talented restricted free agent that has gone, I guess, this deep into it. And we had a good group conversation in our DBB Slack this morning, and I learned some things from you. I learned some things from Kyle Metz. I'm kind of looking at this. So there's been the conversation of Duren possibly taking the qualifying offer. And so we're going to do a little bit of math here. His qualifying offer is $9.6 million. Let's say we're in a world where the relationship has shattered. He takes the qualifying offer. And let's say in Jalen Duren's camp's ideal world, let's say they have a guaranteed max offer next summer. The most that he can be offered is 4 years, $187 million. So that is his max for next summer from any team. So if we were to add that onto his qualifying offer, that is roughly a 5-year, $197 million. If you are adding the max that he can get next summer from any team when he's an unrestricted free agent, if he were to take the qualifying offer, it is pretty much the exact same contract, if not maybe a little bit higher than what the Pistons are trying to give him now. So that to me was very eye-opening, where if there's a world where Jalen Duren does have a max contract from a team next summer, if it was guaranteed and he took the qualifying offer, he still would not make over $200 million over the next 5 years. So that to me was very fascinating, to where it's like, even more so, I would say Detroit's leverage is 90-10 in this situation. And after learning that, I might even say 95-5, because does Jalen Duren want to risk, being on a $9 million deal next year? Does he get hurt? Does he have a bad playoff performance again? Who knows what could happen, when in reality, he could get security on a 5-year deal this summer that is basically almost, if not the same amount as what he could make total over the next 5 years if he were to take the qualifying offer and then also get a max contract next summer. So that was not something that I had kind of considered. And it's just like, the whole process is fascinating. I'm still at the 5 for 180 camp is what I would give him. In, it's more than any other team could have offered him. But I mean, I just thought that scenario that you shared, that Kyle Metz shared, kind of opened it up to like the qualifying offer world, what that looks like. And financially, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's not worth the risk because you're going to end up basically getting the exact same amount of money.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I keep coming back to this is a 6'10", 270-pound man who has a history of lower body joint issues. It didn't really pop up last year, but he's had ankle injuries through the majority of his NBA career. And then that even went back to Memphis too. Like, I don't want that to happen. Even if he takes the qualifying offer, I'd like him to be healthy for all 82 games and then be an asset in the playoffs as well. But like, when you start to look at that as a risk of losing millions and millions and millions of dollars, now I think that becomes much more of a thing to keep in mind here. Mimsy 313, why drag it out so much? Let me ask you another question. What's changed since May? Other than the fact that now there's no one left with cap space, which was true very early in June, there's really nothing new here. So I think that no side has really an incentive to move off their position until we start getting close to training camp. And I think that's probably just what it's unfortunately going to be. But we did get a good question here, a voicemail question from Sean asking kind of a related thing here about Jalen Duren.
Hello, this is Sean. I had a question. I was wondering how Jalen Duren's contract standoff might impact, or if it would likely impact, his off-season developmental work in terms of doing the things the Pistons might have encouraged him to work on this off-season in order to improve his game. Like, I think all the players sort of get guidance from the coaching staff, work on development, and even have coaches checking in with them throughout the off-season on the development. How do you think that process is occurring, if at all, now, and how much would that impact potentially his performance next year to shore up the things we saw in the playoffs that could still use some improvement? Thanks for my question. Enjoy the show. Thanks again. Bye.
All right, so Jalen Duren's offseason plan, right? Now we did, Omari got to touch on this a little bit on the most recent Pistons Pulse, got asked a similar question there, and he kind of made it sound like it was guys have their own personal trainers that they work with every offseason. You'd assume they get a little bit of a list from the team, things that they want them to specifically focus on, but they don't necessarily have to do those things. So Omari made it sound like there wouldn't be too much of a difference here, and if there is, maybe it's not all that much noticeable. But I mean, admittedly, that's a bit of speculation, right? So like, what do you think? Do you kind of buy that story? Do you think maybe like, oh no, the coaches aren't going to get to talk to him because now he's a free agent, although technically he's back next year until he's not, you know what I mean? Like, I'd be kind of shocked if they're not allowed to at least connect with him a little bit. I don't know. What do you think about this one? It's interesting.
Yeah. If I'm in the middle of a summer where I do not currently have a contract, I'm probably living in the gym because I guess I don't want it to look like I'm taking the summer off just because I don't have a contract. I would assume Duren is going about this offseason just like he has every other previous offseason. He for sure knows what the team wants him to work on, considering, during contract negotiations, I would assume that comes up in conversation of like, hey, here's where we think you can grow your game. The coaching staff has put him in different positions. He made a jump this year by him becoming more of an on-ball player. So, if he can work on his ball handling to where he can kind of take that lift, especially with Tobias Harris, there's no more dumping it off to Tobias with 10 seconds left in the shot clock for him to post up and give us a mid-range bucket. Now I think that goes to Asar. Now I think that goes to Duren. So there's going to be even more opportunities, I think, for him to have the ball in his hands. So I don't think the contract situation changes anything about his offseason development. If anything, I think it should kind of kick him in the butt even a little bit more of like, hey, let's make sure that when we sign this contract, like we're ready to roll when the season starts. The one thing that I do like about this question is just, I don't think he can be around the team, right? Because he's not like he wasn't at summer league, right?
I honestly
All the guys,
have no idea.
He wasn't at summer league with
This is true.
with Cade, with Ron, with Asar. Javante was even there. So I don't. That part of it, I'm not totally sure. But like we're not seeing it. Like I remember, I think it was 2 off seasons ago, we saw pictures of him and Cade like overseas in Europe or something, right? I think they were going on like trips and whatnot together. So there may be something to it where maybe you're not around the team as much if he was on contract. But I don't think this has any effect on his offseason development plan.
Yeah, I'm with you. The only other thing to keep in mind with that is, maybe those things are still happening. It's just we don't see a post on Instagram about it.
Just because you don't see a video of him shooting
Yeah.
threes, doesn't mean.
Yeah, I mean, he very well could have gone to work up in the mountains in Denver with Cade Cunningham to do altitude training again or whatever the heck that was. Like, absolutely could be, and now we just don't get the post about it. I would also say I'm as negative as I've been about Duren early on in his career, kind of like questioning the type of player he was going to become. I don't think there was ever really, I still don't quite understand where this like motivation issue or question mark came from.
Agreed.
I don't remember seeing any of that in the pre-draft profile. I don't remember questioning that when I was looking at his like effort or engagement level in Memphis, even back at the time. It was more of a stylistic thing for me. And then now he's kind of disproven that, completely changed my mind, all that good stuff, what have you. But my point is, like, he just had a terrible playoffs. He is a high-level competitor. I'm sure that's about all the motivation he needs. Mimsy313 says, "Oh, shoot, a voicemail from someone other than a fella.
I started
have
laughing.
News for you.
Yeah,
I got the perfect one for you. This is from our guy, a fella, talking about Ron Holland.
Hey, this is a fella from the DBB comments, and I had a little question for you. What are we thinking about the Ron Holland draft pick? Because I'm seeing a little bit of discourse on the net talking about Ron Holland being a wasted pick, such and so forth. So wanted to see what y'all's thoughts were on that. See you on the pod.
All right, Ron Holland bust. Headline for the show, I'm sure.
On the net, as I do my best a fella impression. So by default, and I don't know if I feel bad doing this, but by default, Ron kind of fell into trade talks this summer as, somebody who hasn't eclipsed 30% as a 3-point shooter. Granted, he just turned 21, I think like a week or two ago. So definitely plenty of time left in his NBA career. Also, as Trajan Langdon's first draft pick, it's not a surprise to me that 2 years in, if he's not wanting to give him up that quickly, I'm cool with that. I've grown on this Ron Holland as the backup 4 idea. So a couple episodes ago,
It must just be so convincing.
Yeah, you are. That's what it is. A couple episodes ago, remember I told you that I think I want Ron Holland's archetype to be John Collins, but as a small forward. And so now that John Collins is on the team, I'm kind of like, what if that's just like a 3-and-D power forward type role, shoot a 3 if you're open, if you're not, you're getting to the rim kind of situation. So
sure,
I don't know if there's a world where they're like trying to turn Ron into the backup 4, but if we're talking about Asar starting, if we're talking about Collins starting, I frankly think Ron is only the only other true forward on the team. I guess you could call Taurean Prince a forward, but he's 2 inches shorter than Ron. You might call Javante Green a forward, but I think he's like 6'4". I think he's 4 inches shorter than Ron. So at least Ron has the height. I love that me and you have called him a ball of clay, and I love that we differ to where you think he's stronger than he is quicker. I think he's quicker than he is stronger. So I more so want him as like a chaos causer, as like a point of attack defender. But I'm coming around to this idea of Ron being the backup 4. And I guess here's my worry, Wes, is like, I'm trying to think of backup fours out there that Ron would have to end up guarding. And I'm thinking of like Obi Toppin. I'm thinking of like Bobby Portis. Tobias. Like, I don't think Ron is a good, like, he's going to try. He's going to give the effort. Like, all of that is going to be there. If you ask him to be a post defender, I think Ron will do it. But guys like that, like, I think John Collins would put Ron in the post if they were on opposite teams. Tobias put him in the post. Bobby Portis, Obi, like guys that are just kind of bigger forwards. I think he's going to struggle defending, which is my only concern. But what are your thoughts now on kind of where things stand with Ron?
So it's funny. The Pistons have two players that kind of fit this mold for me, where like on the night they were picked, I was quite disappointed. I was not a big fan of the Jalen Duren selection. That's if you guys have been listening to the show for a while, you could go back, you could pull those up. I was not all that excited, and then maintained that for quite a few years up until last season. And then Ron Holland as well. I had him, I think, down at like 10 or 11 in that draft. There were some other players I was far more interested in. Unfortunately, one of them was Dejan Solon. That hasn't looked all that good for Charlotte, but we're going to set that aside for a second. Point is, like, Ron Holland wasn't an archetype of player I was all that much interested in with the 5th overall pick. But then you watch Ron Holland play basketball, and I was very quickly converted. I really very much like his game. And I think that the vision with Ron, at least in my opinion, it's still the same. The trouble is the Pistons timeline has kind of shifted up, just as a product of them being so good. But like, if you think of it defensively, I love the pairing of Ron Holland with Asar Thompson. I love that Ron Holland, to your point, you could put him on some guards or on some wings if you really want to leverage Asar Thompson as maybe like a roamer for a specific matchup. That's something that Ron Holland lets you do. There's no one else on this roster that would let you do that. I think that if Ron Holland can start hitting some threes, offensively, I really like the idea of a player as athletic as him, with a history as he does in the G League of being a 20-plus points per game scorer, high rim pressure guy, high free throw generator guy, right? Like that forward, that fills a lot of needs for what this team's offense is missing. It's not there yet. So admittedly, I still have a lot of Ron Holland stock. I don't think we can say this is a bust pick yet. I think we knew it when he was selected. That was part of why I wasn't all that excited. He seemed so raw, and he still does to an extent. I mean, that's why he wasn't playing all that much in the playoffs and eventually just wasn't playing at all when we got it later into that Cavs series. But we already know from a good article at the Detroit News, that's something that's been motivating him. I don't think he's that far away. It is kind of where I'm at with Ron Holland. I think that he's already flashed the ability to drive to the rim in the half court, where you can feel kind of confident, like, okay, if he works on it for another summer, okay, maybe he's going to be able to start doing that more. He already gets to the free throw line well. I think you see some flashes of like making the right kick out read. Not that he's ever going to be a playmaker, but I think you could start to see that. So that's exciting. And then defensively, obviously his effort levels through the roof. Like there's something there. I would like to have another season to let it develop, let it play out, and let it see if maybe, hey, he can knock down some threes, and maybe he's in the conversation now where you're looking at John Collins and you're going, well, like Collins can be a 4 or 5 off the bench too, right? Like you don't have to start him. If Ron Holland's really playing out of his mind, the level of defender that he is, if he's hitting some shots too, all of a sudden that might be a conversation, and that'd be an interesting one. I still have a lot of stock there. I think that he can be a very, very good player. I would be worried about giving him up. Admittedly, if he doesn't pan out next season, now his trade value's tanked, so I understand that perspective of this conversation as well. But as Mimsy 313 says here, 9 to 5's the dream defensively. Yeah, like it would. If Ron Holland can make enough of an advance offensively to make this something we could see more often, that would be such an asset for this team to have him and Asar out there just wreaking havoc on opposing offenses. I would love it.
I wonder if that's the long-term plan. Same thing with what Brad said. If Ron starts hitting threes, like what is a Cade, Asar, Ron starting lineup look like if Ron is hitting even 35% from the corners? Like just be a decent threat from the corners. Like if Cade is your third worst perimeter defender in the starting lineup, everybody's 6'7", 6'8", like good luck scoring on that team. And I'm gonna need your memory here. I think this was a Pistons Pulse conversation. I think Amari maybe brought it up a couple episodes ago, but if I remember correctly, there was like steal rate or steals per 100 possessions or something where like Ron, Javante, Asar, and I even think maybe like Paul Reed were all close to the top 10, if not in the top 10. So like all these guys are crazy, like chaos causers on defense. And so as good as they are in transition, the fact that like their hands are so active, that they force turnovers, that they can play in the passing lanes, I think my overarching view on this offseason is I think we're doubling down on the things that we do well. Like this team does a great job of causing turnovers and getting in transition. Paul Reed is one of those people that has active hands that causes turnovers. If Ron is the backup 4 and Paul Reed is your backup 5 and they're just like forcing turnovers, maybe Javante's in there at some point, you still have Asar. Like the idea of them forcing a ton of turnovers and then getting out and running in transition. Now that you have John Collins too, who's just another lob threat that can get out and run. Like I feel like they're doubling down on a bunch of stuff that they already do well, on top of getting a bunch of 3-point shooting to surround, what they do well. So I think what kind of is part of why I'm coming around to Ron Holland at the 4 as a backup 4 is because of how many other people kind of compliment his game and how he's just a wrecker on defense whose game instantly turns into transition. And having a bench lineup like that is really fun, especially if you have guards like a Corey or Danis who want to get out and run with them and will find them in transition. So still team Ron. I mean, the fact that he can only order a beer legally now, as of a week ago, like he still has much of an NBA career ahead of him. So I'm excited for him to stick around. I just can't help but feel like him and Duncan are kind of like next on the chopping block if a trade is made. That's how I felt about Stu going into the summer. And so now I feel like that's kind of been passed on to Duncan and Ron. I'm not sure if that's the correct way to feel, but that's kind of like where if another move is made, like in a Trey Murphy kind of deal, granted, I don't think that's happening anymore, I feel like Ron and Duncan are maybe next up, but we'll see.
So Laz Jackson, our guy Laz Jackson, brought this up on the Pistons Pulse. And it was something when I saw this voicemail I wanted to bring up as well. So shout out to Laz here for this. But, I do think we Pistons fans have a tendency to forget that Ron Holland was a scorer, like coming in. Like that, what the archetype was like, could this be Jaylen Brown?
He was like a
really athletic. Yeah, exactly. He was averaging 20 plus points a game. And that was going back even to his high school days, like, through his recruiting process was like, this was supposed to be a super athletic, super rangy wing forward that could just go and put pressure on the rim and go get you some buckets. And you saw that in the G League, admittedly, extremely inefficiently. That was part of my concern there at the time. But like, that's not just gone away. The Pistons have just been a good team throughout his time in the league. Like his first season is when they go to the playoffs and get knocked out by the Knicks. Like playoff teams don't take the ball of clay, rangy forward that's super athletic and say, hey, like go take 1 million pick and roll reps. They don't do that because it's not going to go well. They don't take a guy like that. 60-win teams don't say, hey, Ron, I want you to get a steady diet of handoffs. Like that's just not something that you're going to do with a guy that's 20 years old and still so raw. But that doesn't mean that he's not been working on that in the background. I'm sure that he has. And at this point, I think I'd like to see it. I think I'd like to see, can we unlock some of that scoring potential that you had when you're in the G League that was propped up by your incredible ability to get to the free throw line? this team could use that. So let's go see it. I think our bench lineup here is going to be able to have a lot of spacing. That should bode well for a player like Ron Holland, but I would love to see that potential start to get tapped into, or at least attempted, right? Like after 30 games, if it's a total bust, then all right, yank it back. And now you can be operating at the trade deadline, kind of know that maybe it's time to move on. But I do think that potential that he had previously before coming to the league, it's not like it just evaporated. So let's see what these last 2 years of working on behind the scenes have really gotten him.
Do we know if Fred Vinson has a guest house on his property, and is Ron staying in it? And is Asar rooming with him? Because
that'd be great.
Hopefully that's what they've been working on this summer. Yeah, give me 35% from the corner, and I'm contemplating moving Ron into the starting lineup at that point. So,
well, speaking of lineups, Robbie, I know you've been looking forward to this one, so
what
let's
a
get to it. We got a good question here from Alex. Shout out Alex from Vegas, leaving us another voicemail, but he was asking about that rotation and kind of balancing the roster out a little bit as well.
Hello again, you guys. This is Alex from Las Vegas. I thought it was a little funny that I finally decided to call and make a voicemail, and Blake finally decided that he wanted no parts with the Pindown. Just kidding. But congratulations to Robbie, Bobby, Buckets. Really proud that you got your little spot here, and excited to see what else you got in store for us as far as your content and opinions and takes go. My question for you guys would be, if the season started today, what are you guys thinking as far as the rotation goes? How far and deep is it going to be going? And if you guys had one move to make, how would you rebalance this roster right now? Take Trey Murphy III off the table as an option for right now. What do you guys think? Would love to hear it. Thanks so much. And my friend in Tennessee, best of luck to you in your new venture. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, Robbie. So I think for the sake of time, let's unfortunately look past the balancing the roster question for now. Let's just look at the rotation. I know I think you put together a nice little spreadsheet. So let's try to build one out. Let's see it.
Oh, look at this. First time doing this live. It shows up perfectly.
Nailed it.
Look at the production value of this podcast.
If you guys are just listening on the audio here, Robbie pulled up, just imagine the most beautiful, like serene Google sheet that you possibly could have. That is what this looks like. And if you guys are live with us here on YouTube, don't tell everyone what it actually looks like. Go ahead.
Yeah. Beautiful and serene just means black and
calming,
white.
A calming spreadsheet.
Yeah. All right.
It's like a deer sipping water from a lake. That's what it is. Yeah.
Our new friend Alex has inspired us to play our own version of Guess the Rotation. Apologies to any of our audio listeners, but this is why, hey, the chat needs to get involved. If you guys want to play, you can help throw us some advice on where Wes and I are going to kind of create our own depth chart. We will be sure to share it for our audio listeners. But yeah, this is why you come watch on YouTube right here. Wes, before we get started, is it fair for me to put 4 starters penciled in for both of us, or should we start from the top?
Well, hey, I mean, so I'm thinking point guard here. It's probably got to be, I don't know, like Danis Jenkins, right? I mean, Cade Cunningham off the bench might make sense. And no, yeah, you could put in 4 starters, Robbie. I think we're going to be on the same page with that. As Michael Doppier says, the easy ones: Cade, Asar, John Collins, Jalen Duren. Then it gets interesting. Absolutely correct. We are putting so Cade at point guard, Asar at small forward, John Collins at power forward, and then Jalen Duren at center for everyone on audio here. The easy ones, right?
These are the 4 that I think everybody would pencil in. I think really the question of kind of the offseason when you talk about the rotation is who's starting at the 2. Wes, would you like to take the lead, or would you like me to take this lead?
I'll jump in because I think here's the question, right? You've got kind of a balancing act to do. Do you want more spacing in that starting unit, which is a fair thing to want? In that case, I mean, you're probably looking at, hey, just put Duncan back in there, right? Because he started almost all the games for them last year, and it looked pretty well. And now you're adding in a John Collins, and John Collins is he's a better shooter than Tobias Harris. So, hey, that's an increase in spacing. So we got a couple saying Duncan, right? But then Mimsy 313 brings up Danis Jenkins because Danis Jenkins gets you more ball handling. Here's my question that is kind of haunting me at the moment. This is, as a fan, kind of keeps me up at night. If you look at these four guys, Cade Cunningham, Asar Thompson, John Collins, Jalen Duren, if a defense is really playing some extended half-court defense, blitzing Cade, trying to get the ball out of his hand, and then guarding up near the half-court line, who in that group are you comfortable with giving the ball under significant ball pressure?
By default, it's Asar, but right now,
you're not comfortable.
Are you
with
trusting that?
Right?
Yeah.
Like we've seen Asar, for as great as he is in transition, with the ball in his hands, he's not a guy that he doesn't handle the pressure well, or at least he hasn't yet in the past. If he's been asked to handle the ball, if the defender kind of gets up underneath him, as they've done in the mid-range in the past, he kind of gets a little disheveled, picks it up too soon, all that good stuff. So, or I guess bad stuff. Yeah, like JD, could it be Jalen Duren? And you just kind of ask him to muscle his way up to the top of the key and initiate offense. That honestly might be your best bet here. But the problem is it's not John Collins. It used to be Tobias Harris. So I think that is a big concern. And if you're looking at players on this team that I'm 100% comfortable can handle that kind of pressure, it's just Cade Cunningham. That's it. If you're asking, I think that they can, I've seen enough where I'm pretty comfortable. I think that they won't just turn the ball over and they'll actually be able to initiate a little offense. I think Danis Jenkins falls into that. It's a little bit of projection, but you could probably say Ibuka Okoro. He seemed like he's got a tight enough handle from his college and now summer league where, it's okay, it may not be the cleanest, but maybe it'll be all right. I think the dark horse here, though, is Isaiah Joe. I honestly, it's tough because I've not seen it out of him. He's not been asked to do that for the Thunder. But in spurts, there's been enough flashes there where I'm kind of curious if he can. All this is saying, I'm kind of leaning Danis Jenkins by default. I would love, though, if this could be Isaiah Joe. It's so much projection, and that's the problem.
Yeah, I think my lineup is going to be what I want, or kind of the brand of basketball that I enjoy, that I want to play. So I'm not sure that my lineup is going to end up that way. Where are you going? Give me more time. I've stalled enough. Here, I'll fill it in for you because I'm going the opposite route. To me, what I want out of this starting lineup is I'm giving the extra ball handling duties to Asar, and I'm giving them to Jalen Duren, and I'm going to sink or swim until the trade deadline to see how it goes. I'm of the opinion that Trajan tried to get his Cade's, Robin to Cade's Batman, but couldn't find them. So we're kicking the can to February. We're kicking the can to the trade deadline. And so Trajan went and acquired a ton of shooting, just surrounded these main guys with way more shooting than Cade has had in his career. And then same thing with Asar and Duren. So I'm splitting kind of that secondary playmaker role between Asar and Duren, which means I think your thoughts about a secondary ball handler are very true, are very fair. In my lineup, we're going to struggle with that, but I'm going to value shooting, and I'm also going to value someone who I think is age-wise more with the timeline, and somebody who I think will be on the team next year, whereas I'm not convinced Duncan is going to be on this team past February. So for continuity, I'm going to put him in the starting lineup to give him as much exposure with the starting group as possible. The last thing I'll add here is when Malik Beasley came on the team, he finished first in Detroit Pistons history with 300-something made threes. Duncan Robinson joins the team, and he places second for most threes made in Detroit Pistons history. Next up, who's going to be third on that list, or maybe second, is Isaiah Joe, and he will be starting at the 2 for B.
So here's the thing that I like about this. as much as Danis Jenkins helps the ball handling, and as much as he's not a bad 3-point shooter, like last year while he was streaky, 37% from three, a lot of that off the catch. Like, okay, that's pretty good. Danis Jenkins is not a movement shooter. And the problem with the lineup with your starting Danis Jenkins is that you have nobody that can go take a pin down and knock down a three. And that gives me pause as well. So like I'm kind of with, and this is, it's funny, but Brad B says, what about Kevin Huerter? Like I kind of see where he's coming from. Because if you're looking for a player that like, okay, you can put the ball on the floor, handle a little bit of pressure, make the first pass and get into the offense. I do think Kevin Huerter can do that. If he can be a better shooter than he was last year, then maybe you've really got something there. I like it with Isaiah Joe. I think there's a shot that he can do both. I know Duncan Robinson can't do both. I know Danis Jenkins can't do both, and like barring some incredible development here in the offseason. So I kind of want to change. I'm going to go with Isaiah Joe as well.
Oh,
honestly,
he's swapping it. Okay.
I never committed.
Okay.
I was leaning.
I committed for you.
But I think I'm going to do it as well. I want Isaiah Joe as well because I think on this roster, he's the best chance of being able to do both. We got a little bit of Ibuka Okori love here. I would throw it out of the picture there, but yeah, I think we got the same starting five.
All right. I will move to backup PG then. And we originally had pick 28, moved Jaden Ivey to get to 21, and then we moved up again, which you do not make that Jaden Ivey trade unless this front office already had their eyes on a guy that they knew that they couldn't get at 28 and that they maybe could get around pick 20. To guarantee that Trajan got his guy, he basically gave up Isaiah Stewart, right, in the weird Memphis 3 second-round pick swap thing. So he basically gave up Isaiah Stewart to move up 4 picks. From moving up from 28 to 21 to 17, it just makes me think that they are so high on Ibuka Okori, and I know he's young, and I know that there's going to be struggles. There was efficiency struggles during Summer League, but this team, to me, does not have a true secondary ball handler. Danis, to me, is kind of like this combo guy where I think Ibuka does more point guardy things well than Danis does. So I am going to slot in Ibuka Okori as my bench point guard.
This is going to be semantics for both of us, but honestly, I think Danis Jenkins is a better point guard. So it's kind of funny. You're saying Okori does more point guardy stuff. I think Jenkins is a little bit better of a playmaker. Like he averaged almost 4 assists last year in only 20 minutes a game. We've not seen in Stanford that, admittedly, not what he was asked to do. Ibuka Okori, he was much more asked to score, but it kind of came through even in Summer League. Like the dude's a bucket getter, and I'm with you though that he's going to play. So we can just do that. Like I think Danis Jenkins is your nominal backup point guard because he's going to be the one that does a decent amount of the initiating. But I would expect a decent chunk of that bench offense is just going to be have Danis get the ball up so you get to avoid, getting a rookie point guard blitzed in the backcourt, and then have Okori start to operate and look to score. So I think he's going to get to touch the ball quite a bit. I'd have Okori at the backup too. And this is admittedly like it doesn't matter, right?
Yes,
who's the guards?
agreed.
They're both combo guards here in this case. So
bench guards.
That's how I'd have it. But if you flip it and you want to say, well, Okori's smaller, so he'll be the point guard. Like, I don't care. That's fine too.
I'm going to go a different route. For my backup shooting guard, I am not going to go Danis Jenkins. And this goes back to the point that you brought up about the starting lineup, about having a movement shooter like Isaiah Joe. Now, you and I may have differing opinions between Okori and Jenkins on who's more point guardy, but if I value Okori's point guardness, I do not think Danis is kind of bringing what I want in a shooting guard position, which is that movement shooter, that kind of guy who can be a real off-ball threat. Danis, he can be, a catch and shoot guy, but I can't help but feel like they gave this guy a 3-year, $27 million contract to have him be at the end of the bench. Like, with what Trajan Langdon said at the end of the season, that they thought that Herter getting hurt them in the playoffs. It seems like they really value them. And here's what I'll also say, Wes. Kevin Herter is the first 3-year contract that is fully guaranteed. Duncan was not fully guaranteed. John Collins is not fully guaranteed.
2 years are guaranteed because the third year is a team
option.
Yes,
technically team option.
I get where you're going though, but
yes, right. So at least like the second, I think they think this guy is going to be around. And I'm going to stick with my shooting guard position, kind of being this movement shooter, off-ball scorer. And based on the salary that they gave him, I think Kevin Herter is going to be our backup shooting guard, which means somebody already said it. I saw a Duncan conversation that we're trying to push Duncan out of the lineup. Not at all. We need a 40% three-point shooter. I would love everyone to be a 40% three-point shooter in our rotation. To me, another reason as to why I am moving Duncan to the bench is because he's 6'7". He's the only one that can really play shooting guard, that starting shooting guard, backup shooting guard position, that I feel comfortable having the size to play small forward. Duncan cannot guard any position. He can guard maybe one. I'm putting Duncan Robinson as the backup 3. I feel like I'm annoying with how much I love three-point shooting and always push to three-point shooting and want this team to shoot more threes. So based on his size at 6'7", if I have Isaiah Joe and Kevin Herter at shooting guard, Duncan is going to slot in as at the backup small forward for me.
Yeah, we're going to be in lockstep on that one. So, just a quick thought on like Kevin Herter there. If he can hit threes, I get it. It makes a lot of sense. I'll also say that, through let's see, where did it go? Someone just brought up the stats. Yeah, Jay Maluka. His first 14 games with Detroit, he shot 19%, 47 attempts. And then on the next few games, he shot 38% through the rest, 55 attempts. Like there's a huge, huge swing there. And it's not looked all that great since he left Atlanta. He did have a shoulder injury like right around that time. So maybe some of that's kind of kicking. I'll just say I need to see it out of Kevin Herter. I think if he can shoot near 40% again, like we talked about it a little bit with the starting too. Like that would make a lot of sense. I wouldn't have any issue with that either, because I think he's also kind of an underrated defender. He put some effort in on that end. But the counter to this is 2 years, $9 million annual average value contract, third-year team option. Like if that's your essentially fifth guard, yeah, that's totally fine. You've not overpaid for that. It's not the end of the world. Not a bad deal at all. And also helps you stack up some salary in order to make a trade if you need. So I don't think that the contract really guarantees him a spot, but I'll continue to say, like, if he can hit threes at the clip he used to in Atlanta, then I think he's going to have to play because he does a lot really well. He's a really high IQ player. I like him on the drive quite a bit. I love his game offensively if he's shooting threes.
Yep.
Otherwise.
And making threes.
Well, let's go to the 4 because I assume we're going to be in lockstep there as well.
There.
Ron Holland. The thing about this that I kind of continue to think about is, as often as the Pistons did play 11 or 12 guys last year, they still really didn't go to like the all bench lineup too much. So, to the extent that maybe Ron Holland is a little out of his depth, if he's getting put into the post by, I don't know, like you mentioned Obi Toppin, like if he's got to guard lobs and screens from Obi Toppin, maybe that's not great. I'll grant you it's probably not. I just don't think it's going to happen all that often.
I agree.
Especially when you're, if you're just kind of looking at the group of 4 here as forwards. You got Asar, John Collins, Duncan Robinson, Ron Holland. I know that Duncan Robinson's not a big defender. He's not a good defender at all. But like those other 3 guys, you can kind of move them around a little bit. Not that John Collins is the best defender, but he's a little bit more more poppy than Tobias was. So I think he got that there. And I'd be shocked if they're not going 11 or 12 deep through stretches again this season too. So like, I think Javonte Green's going to factor in here as well. So I'm not too worried about it. I think it'll be fine. And I think you're kind of moving pieces around enough where the rare instance where he's really going to have to take a true big, I think you'd be fine trusting him to give it a go and make it not the end of the world.
Yeah, going back to our conversation from earlier, I'm just excited for Ron to wreak havoc as kind of one of those guys that just has active hands that forces turnovers. You know, we talked about earlier, Asar, Ron, Javonte, Paul Reed, all guys that really were really good about forcing turnovers. And I'm going to go ahead and slot B-Ball Paul into, I would assume, both of our center positions.
Yep.
I want to talk about B-Ball Paul for a second. You could argue that B-Ball Paul was the best big that the Pistons had at times during the playoffs. As much as I love Isaiah Stewart and Stu's rim protection is going to be missed, I think Paul Reed is so much more fluid offensively. Like, I remember there was one point, and I think it was during the Cleveland series, he like broke out a spin post move. He had the Dirk leg fade away, go in, and he can like he's hitting Euro steps. He can put the ball on the floor. He's not afraid to shoot threes. Like I thought Stu at times was afraid to let it fly. I understand why there are worries about putting Paul into the Stu role, but I also am excited about it. I'm excited that we will have a different offensive archetype in the backup center position. I would watch games and I would watch Stu set a screen, roll into nothing, and just not be a factor in the pick and roll. And so badly, I just wanted him to pop and just do something different, offer something else on offense. And B-Ball Paul does that. And again, as much as he has active hands, I'm intrigued about Ron and B-Ball Paul as kind of those defensive forwards coming off the bench. Like, hey, give me 16 minutes. Give me 4 minutes per quarter of you just going nuts. Put all your energy out there. Be a wrecker on defense. Force turnovers. Let's get out and run where you're surrounded by guys like Kevin Huerter, Duncan Robinson, maybe Danis Jenkins in your scenario of like, let's get out and run with this bench lineup. And the idea of Ron playing next to Paul, where Paul can kind of stretch that floor out, I think this bench lineup suits well for Ron Holland at the 4 to kind of let him be that guy, that downhill guy that can get to the rim. So as much as, there have been conversations out there about, Paul Reed taking on that role of being a true, secondary center, basically, I'm intrigued by it. I know that there are some concerns, but I will say I'm intrigued by it.
All right, I want to start this off by saying I love Paul Reed. I am a big fan of B-Ball Paul.
There's a bet coming.
There is, and I think you look at this lineup. All right, let me just read off the front court here. Asar Thompson, John Collins, Jalen Duren, Duncan Robinson, Ron Holland, Paul Reed. The rebounding is atrocious. This is terrible.
Size
the size problem. Paul Reed generously listed at 6'7". I get he's a really good athlete. He was
that short. I thought he was like 6'9".
Oh, let me double check it. No, okay. Sorry.
I know he's not.
He's listed at 6'9", but that is a generous listing. My bad. That's my fault. Paul Reed, for all of the great things that he does, which I think is a lot of them, you listed them off. The counterbalance to all of those is that he's not a box out guy, right? He's just not. So he's not a very good positional rebounder. He is 210 pounds. 210 pounds playing the center position. Like he is incredibly. So we bring up Stu here, Pistons fan 11. Is he taller than Stu?
Maybe
I
by an
don't
inch.
I don't believe so, but if it is,
he
it's very slight. Yeah. Paul Reed's rebounding is the chaos rebounds. And those are great.
This bench
Those are
lineup
really
is the
helpful.
chaos lineup.
It
This
is.
there to
It really is.
force chaos.
I will be really worried for you're playing the Cavs and Paul Reed. I mean, we saw it in the playoffs. Paul Reed's got to guard Jared Allen, got to guard Thomas Bryant, got to guard Evan Mobley. Crap. That's not good. Playing the Knicks. Paul Reed's your Andre Drummond matchup. How do you think that's going to go? One of the best offensive rebounders of all time. Paul Reed's got to find a way to get the defensive board away from him. Like I love the chaos that he causes. I love the fact that he's a shockingly good shot blocker. I love the steals that he gets. He does a lot of really great stuff and stuff offensively too that, as you brought up, like Isaiah Stewart just could not do. But the negative there's a really big deal. I think it is a really big deal, especially when you look at who he's likely playing with. Because even if you say, well, Duncan Robinson's going to be the starting 2, you're going to have Isaiah Joe as the backup 2, and that allows us to get more Javonte Green minutes. Like, Javonte Green's not a great positional rebounder. He's also 6'4".
Right.
He's 37. Like that he is an athlete-based basketball player, and he's 37. And you're going to say that's our solution to go get rebounds and guard some bigger guy. Like I'm very worried about the size here. I'm very worried about the rebounding here. So much so where like I kind of get where Michael Dompier is coming from with this one, where he says he was looking at how JB used Paul Reed during the season when Stu was out. And it was a lot less than fans think. So he could see Collins playing some backup 5. Like I could kind of see that saying, all right, John Collins, you're actually our backup 5 as well. And that allows us to play a 10-man rotation that forces Javonte Green in here. But again, like it's not like that addresses the size. In fact, it does make the rebounding slightly worse because though John Collins is a good rebounder for his position, Paul Reed's a better rebounder than Javonte Green. So I just don't think that this roster has a solution for this right now. And that's a big deal. Big deal.
I think biggest hole in the roster right now is kind of backup big, whether that's a 4, whether that's a 5. If you can get a defensive-minded 4 that likes to rebound in here, maybe that's a different story. But I think if they're going to ask Ron, hey, can you hustle, and grab every rebound and play good defense, and we're going to ask you to maybe sometimes be a post defender, and he's going to sign up for it, and he's going to try. So I'm good with seeing it through. But yes, absolutely. I think the biggest weakness right now is kind of backup big, backup 4. Because I've seen his name a few times, I'm going to go ahead and throw them in here at bat or our depth, our third string center. Do you have Tolu as well?
Yeah, I think he's going to make it. Like, I feel like his position's relatively safe. They just, especially after what we saw out of Summer League with Onyenso, like after talking with Tyler Metcalf after the draft, I kind of thought, hey, when he was on the show, kind of thought, oh, well, okay, maybe there is a little bit of a potential for like a Dylan Cardwell situation there with the Kings. Maybe he can make something work as a rebounder, shot blocker, but I don't know. He looked so raw. So I think Tolu's pretty safe here, which, I mean, he looked solid when he was getting run last year with the team. So I don't hate that at all, having him as kind of your emergency 5.
Big. Yep. Exactly.
And, as much as I point out with Ron Holland being kind of at the nominal 4, I do think it's probably worth mentioning as well with Paul Reed that, like, the number of truly massive backup 5s is not as large as you'd think. Right. Skilled size is kind of a hard thing to come across in the NBA. So, it's not like he's going to be truly outmatched physically every night. At least not to a significant extent, but I do think it'll be more often than we're probably comfortable with. The only other thing I did want to bring up would be that I've said this for a couple of years now, but like, so I can't find the question. I think it might've been Pistons fan 11. Sorry, I can't find it. Yeah, I can't bring it up, but I think it was Pistons fan 11 here, bringing up that, Ron Holland, more perimeter focused defender. Are you wasting his talents out at the 4? There's really these days not a difference.
Yes.
There's not a difference between the 3 and the floor in most cases in the NBA these days. The one difference The one thing that like splits it nominally that is truly different right now between a 3 and a 4 is your 4 is more likely to be delivering a handoff rather than receiving it. If you flip that, it's likely a 3. Otherwise, these are perimeter players. Greg Monroe does not exist anymore. That is a dead breed. It doesn't happen. There are even your like Obi Toppin, who's a bigger backup 4. He's a lob threat big,
Right.
and he plays out at the 3-point line when he's not catching lobs. That's just the 4 is a perimeter position, so I wouldn't personally worry about that too much. As far as Kevin Huerter, backup third string guard for the bench here at the 2. That'd be me. Other third stringers, I think Javonte Green at the 3, but he's going to play because I think they go 11 deep. So I think it's him and Kevin Huerter fighting for that 11th spot. And hey, Javonte Green is 37 years old. Totally possible that Kevin Huerter wins that out. But right now I'd lean Green.
So I think I find the conversation around Danis Jenkins very interesting. If I have to guess, I think he starts the season as the backup point guard. I'm wondering if I'm kind of projecting what I think maybe the rotation will be by the end of the year. My kind of thinking here is I think Okori will do more point guard things than Danis, or will do them better. I also think someone like Kevin Huerter does more shooting guard things than Danis Jenkins does, where Danis is kind of stuck in this like middle no man's land of kind of a point guard, kind of a shooting guard. I am essentially giving Danis Jenkins the Marcus Sasser role of, hey, we need a 5th guard off the bench. Like, that's going to be you, whether it's foul trouble, whether it's somebody's hurt, whether, whatever the situation may be. I just, for whatever reason, like, I'm not as high on Danis as I think other people are. And I think just based on what they gave up to go get Okori, I think they want to use him and that they're excited about him. If you're going to give Huerter a $9 million contract, I don't think it's to be the 3rd shooting guard off the bench. And so that's where I have Chaz Lanier of where he's going to be. I would put Javonte Green as my backup small forward, and I would put Taurean, let me spell his name right, Taurean Prince as backup power forward. And really any of these depth pieces, like I could see JB Bickerstaff, depending on the situation, depending on foul trouble, depending on whatever team you're playing. If you need Javonte Green minutes, he'll be able to come off the bench and give you minutes at the 3, at the 4, maybe the 2. If you need Danis to come in because Kevin Huerter's hurt and you need some backup too. And so I guess I could see them, and to Alex's point from our voicemail, he asked, how deep do we go? To start the season, it might be 11 or 12 because there are guys in this depth section that I think you could make an argument deserve to be in the everyday rotation. And I would think that's Danis and Javonte Green as kind of my like 11th and 12th guys off the bench.
Here's my counter for you with Danis Jenkins. If you look at this roster right now, either of our depth charts here, and you're just thinking about the guards that they have, other than Cade Cunningham,
I have 2
who
ball
can you
handlers.
confidently say can
Like, one of them's
actually
Cade.
initiate offense?
I'm hoping Okori can. That's what I'm banking on right now. Well, that's what I mean by 2 ball
That's a hope and a
handlers.
prayer. That's
Yes.
my point.
Yes.
So to your point that Danis Jenkins
At
is going
least
to
Danis
start as the
has
backup.
done it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that it's there. Look, Danis, he's got some warts, right? I mean, he was a 2-way player. He went undrafted, right? So it's not like this is like a superstar in the making or anything here. But the things that he does well, I think that this team needs, and I think you could say the same thing with Ibuka Okori, which is why I'm going to guess both of them really do play. Like if you need a guy that can just initiate the offense, keep things running smoothly. Also, you'd like that player to have a little bit of experience, especially when you get into a playoff setting. Hey, that's Danis Jenkins. He can do that. He averaged 10 and 4 last year in 20 minutes. He shot 37% from 3. If you could just, keep that 3-point percentage up, don't let it get streaky like it did for a month or two there later into the season. and then figure that, hey, maybe he started to flash kind of that mid-range pull-up jump shot. That's a nice counter for him instead of just barreling straight to the rim. That's easy, low-hanging fruit. He could definitely add that this season. Like, he's a very, very good guard. I think he is an NBA guard. So I think he can push to start at the 2. I think that your movement shooting, that's going to be a problem. So I do think I'm still right now leaning Isaiah Joe, as much of a fan of Danis's game as I am. But for that reason, like, I think he has to play, because even if you get a Corey, even if a Corey plays really well, the things that a Corey does well are not the same things that Danis Jenkins does well, especially when we're talking initiation and just kind of keeping things running, right? Making things smooth for that backup unit. So I think Danis is going to play throughout the year. He's kind of earned their trust. And I think it's noteworthy that he did start those couple of games in the playoffs, even if that may not be the long-term plan. But we're kind of burying it here, because I mean, Ibuka Okori is going to be the next Donovan Mitchell. He'll be starting by mid-season, Robbie. I mean, what are we doing?
Sign me up for that. Sign me up. If he's good enough to start next to Cade, let's go. Here's what I'll say. I'm assuming you have Chaz. We were going to have a DeRozan conversation and just didn't get to it.
We'll save it.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to save it. Here's what I'll say. We have 16 guys on the roster right now. I'm assuming that you're putting Chaz as kind of your 15th or one of the last few guards on the bench.
Yeah.
I think
I'd rather take the shot on a guy like Chaz Lanier being able to maybe add a skill here. And if you figure your 15th guy is really not going to play, I think I'd like to bank on the bit of potential that he's got, rather than taking a sure thing in Gary Harris. So I think I'd be waving Gary Harris.
Unfortunately for me, when Detroit finally gets a Michigan State Spartan on the team, I can't even fit him in my depth chart. I mean, I graduated the year that Gary went to the draft. We were at Michigan State together. I ran into him at a bar, actually. I have a picture of a selfie with him.
Nice.
He probably was not 21, but he was there. And I just feel bad that, Gary Harris does not make the list. But hey, when they sign Duren, eventually they're going to have to cut somebody. And I guess you and I agree that Gary Harris looks like the odd man out here.
I think, for all the kind of consternation, right, about the Pistons offseason that has been, they haven't made a big move. They didn't really, other than drafting Ibuka Okori, they really didn't add ball handling. All those concerns, I think all of those are valid. I get it. But I do just have to say, when you look at this roster, the advantage that this team will have will be one of the bigger advantages they had last season that helped them push all the way to 60 wins. And that's just the depth here. I mean, truly, other than, in my opinion, the point guard position, in your opinion, it'd be the shooting guard position. But other than one of those guard positions, you are 3 deep with legitimate NBA players.
Yeah, I
that's
agree.
Something that not a lot of teams can boast. So I do think that out of doing this whole exercise, I know we were kind of hoping to do like rotation stuff, but honestly, my takeaway is they still have that advantage, and that's a really great thing.
Yep. If there's a scenario where Javonte Green is your 11th man and, he's shooting, I thought he shot like 38% from 3 or something like that. He played good defense. I'm glad Javonte Green is back. And the fact that, you can have somebody like him as your 11th man should be a compliment to, I guess, to the depth of your team. So I agree. But Alex, thank you for inspiring our Guess the Rotation with our voicemail. And just very excited to make sure that this actually worked. Honestly, that our production value came through on the podcast, which is why you watch on YouTube.
Oh, no. See, again, if you're listening on audio, just remember this, it's like a deer in a meadow. It was a beautiful, beautiful spreadsheet.
Yes.
Lowers your heart rate when you look at it. It was not just some gray title box on in black and white on Google Sheets. That's not what this was. It was absolutely beautiful. And nobody, if anybody watched here on YouTube, don't tell them. Yeah. Don't spoil
my artwork.
Don't spoil the surprise. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Look, Robbie, I think we got to end here on this one. This was
Yeah.
great. I love that we got to squeeze an hour 30 out of this. This was fantastic. But I do want to play this one voicemail here for our guy, Blake Silverman. This is from a fella. And Blake, if you're listening, I hope you appreciate it. But this was our man, a fella again.
Hey, don't really have a question, but I just started listening to the last episode, and I heard that Blake stepping away from the pod to take care of family and handle business that way. So just wanted to let you know, really appreciated your contributions to the pod, your voice on the pod, and just the conversation and the back and forth that you and Wes had. And we just appreciate all your work, man. You did great with your run on the pod. So thanks a lot. And stepping back to handle family, I respect that decision a heck of a lot. I just got married myself, so it's definitely an adjustment for sure. But I really respect you for handling your business as a man and as a father. So do your thing, and appreciate your contributions. All right. Oh, and this was a fella, by the way. Talk to y'all.
All right. And on that awesome note there, Robbie, I think I'm going to throw it over to you for the first time to close out the show.
Look at our guy, a fella, just being the kindest fella out there with a little farewell to Blake. Yeah, be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you guys for hanging out. Very fun episode. Glad the whole production value worked. But hey, if you want to be like a fella, make sure that you call the number, ask a question, leave a voicemail for us. That number is 313-355-2717. A big thank you to Sean Corp, our managing editor at Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. And shout out to you guys for these great questions and talking points. We will catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We cannot wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you.